Hi peeps, I'm Ariel Grace, and your psychic tip of the day is imaginary friends. Okay, so I have two examples of imaginary friends. I'm just calling them imaginary friends because a lot of us when we were little, we had our imaginary friend, right? And our imaginary friend played with us and talked to us and did things with us, and sometimes like our imaginary friend would have to have a place at the table or have their own things. Right? So and the reason why I'm talking about this is because I always get questions about psychic kids because now there's more information about the kids and intuition, and oh my God, they are intuitive, and it's okay now. Before it was kind of not okay, or really, I don't know that if it wasn't okay, but I feel like there just wasn't enough information about it. Like, what do I do if I have a psychic kid? Now we have lots of advice, right? So, I have two examples of psychic kid imaginary friends that I want to share with you and also give you some advice about. Okay, so the first one is my youngest son, when he was about 3 years old, had a friend. His name was Barney. Barney was a spirit guide, and he was an army man. And I actually got to see him a couple of times. And wherever we would go, Barney had to have, you know, a plate at the table. He had to have a seatbelt, his own toys, and, just different Barney things. So, um, but Barney stayed with my son until he was probably around like 7 years old, 7 or 8 or so. And Barney was a friend of my son in a different life, and they were actually in the army together. They died because a bomb exploded. And so they died together, and Barney, being a spirit guide, and me going, hey, who are you and why are you hanging out with my son? Um, he told me that that's why he came into this lifetime, because he felt like he wasn't able to protect my son in the other lifetime. So he came in, he protected him till he was like 7 or 8 years old. And then we got a new spirit guide to protect my son. And his name was a really long Indian name, but we ended up calling him PK. And PK was an Indian warrior. And so PK kept my son, safe. But he also encouraged my son, because we lived in Colorado, he encouraged my son to be out in the woods a lot, which was fine with me because where we lived, it was safe in the woods. So it helped him love nature. Okay, so that is one or two, actually, imaginary friends, spirit guides, that they were there to assist my son. And then the next one I want to talk about is some earthbound spirits that were attached to a little boy that I knew. All right, so this little boy, his name was Dan, and he came to my home. I loved him very much. He's a big boy now. But he came to my home with attachments, hitchhikers. And so it took me a while to get rid of them. But what they would do is they would put him up to no good. They would encourage him to be bad. And he got in trouble a lot until I figured out what was going on. So it's not in his nature to be a bad child. And that's something that I knew just from being around him. He wasn't a bad child, but he had the influence of these hitchhikers. So we had to get rid of them. We had to clear them off of him. And it took 2 or 3 times because Dan would call them back to him because they were his friends, his imaginary friends. And they would play with him and, they would, get him in trouble. But, that's the company he had because he lived with me and my sons were older than him. So he didn't really have any playmates except when he was at school. So, he would get bored and he would call back or he would call to him other spirits because, again, he was a psychic child and he could see them pretty clearly. So now that you've heard both stories, one story is the story of spirit guides and angels that can assist and help a child. The other one is a story of earthbound spirits that are no good. So when your psychic child or when your child talks to you about their imaginary friend, please pay attention because it could be either one. And you want to make sure that your child, one, is safe, and two, is having a wonderful experience, a beautiful experience, right? And you don't want attachments to stay attached for very long because it's really hard to get rid of them once they've made their child their territory, okay? The other thing is spirit guides are going to assist your child. They're going to keep them uplifted. They're going to keep them curious in their nature. Your child is going to want to learn more, or they're going to want to explore more of whatever it is they're interested in. Okay? So we want to know the difference between the two. And if you had an imaginary friend when you were a child, then you know the difference between like something that might harm you, hurt you, or get you in trouble, or something that would help you. Okay? So you want to make sure that you can discern the difference and pay attention when they're talking about their imaginary friend because most of the time, small children, they don't know the difference between an imaginary friend and a real friend. They just know that this being is paying attention to them. Right? Because my son and Barney used to build missiles out of Legos. I'm like, what are you doing? But when I saw that they were using Legos, I would say, oh, well, maybe you guys should make like cars instead, So there you go. There's the difference. And I hope this helps a lot of you because I've had a lot of questions about this. I've been on the road for a little while and I've been talking a lot to people. And that's one of the questions that people had was, how do I take care of my psychic child? Like, what do I do? I don't know anything about this. So here is a book that I wrote. It's called I'm Psychic, Not Telepathic. It can help you. There's handy tips for intuitive people, intuitive kids, and intuitive families. And you all can do the things that are in there, do the homework that's in there, and it can assist you with understanding yourself and your psychic child. Okay? All right. So I hope this helps you. Please let me know in the comments and have a wonderful day. Remember, keep your heart open and align with the energy of love. And I'll see you next time. Bye.